Alexander was elected to the Beverly Hills City Council in Allan Alexander was elected to the Beverly Hills City Council in 1988 and brought many years of professional experience and community service to the City Council. He served 2 terms as mayor, April 1990 through 91 and April 1995 through 96. Mr. Alexander has practiced law for 30 years, specializing in real estate and corporate law. Allan is a 3rd-generation Californian, born in a small agricultural town of Watsonville in Northern California. Besides his terms as council member and mayor, Allan was also involved in the City Planning Commission office and served as chairman from 1986 through 1987. The Honorable Allan Alexander.
On now?
I don't know.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. The time on the council, the time as mayor were just outstanding years in my life, as I think all of us here can attest to. It's a wonderful opportunity, awesome responsibility, but a wonderful opportunity to do something for a community. And I appreciate very much that opportunity that you all provided to me over the years. It is also very nice no longer to be on the City Council. I enjoy private life very, very much. I want to start out with some of the rough spots and then get into the positive points. The ones that stand out in my mind on the rough spots were the Civic Center, which had its ups but also had its downs, and we hit it when it was on the downside. Vicki and I came in at the same time in 1988, and I'll never forget, and Mark Scott will remember it because he was at the meeting too, when Ed Crines advised us that we not only were not quite completed with the project that we thought we were completed with and thought we were about done with the costs and all, and then learned that there was a $20 million amount that was still owed, and we was total shock. That led to a couple of years of very rough time and litigation and all. But we got through it, and we did an analysis and report. We managed it, and now it's functioning very well, and the city, I'm pleased to say, can afford it and is maintaining the bonds. The other one, of course, was totally out of our control, and that was the recession. The recession hit in the early 90s, and we had to do a lot of rearrangings and cost cutting and laying off of people, and it was a tough time. It's not a fun time to be running a city, just like with a business. And the third one was the civil rights litigation, the suit against the city, and it was brought by a former mayor who is not here tonight. That was a rough time for all of us, and I'm very pleased that that suit was dismissed, and we were all vindicated. But it was one of those learning experiences. I have to tell you that I had always kind of hoped that I would find my name in print in the New York Times, and sure enough, it was. But in this case, not for all the good things I'd done, but on page 3 was Vicki's name and my name for having the suit filed against us in the civil rights violations. But anyway, you know, all press is good press, I guess, but I didn't look at it that way at the time. I have more of a sense of humor about it now, by the way. On the positive side, I've got to say that what stood out in my mind was the collegiality of the council. We came at a time in 1988, Vicki and I, when there was a lot of dissension on the city council, and I was asked to run really because of that, and they thought maybe I could help in that regard. And we really did act like a family and pull together, and we had our differences, but there was respect and all for the decision making and the whole process of city government. Secondly, and what I found is not existing in many communities in government, is the professionalism that exists on the city council. Existed when I was on there and in the past, and all the mayors here reflect that. We are an amazing city. Decisions are made, and certainly were made when I was on the council, based upon the merits and based upon good reasoning. And I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that is not true in many communities. It's based on friendships. It's based upon how, you know, people's prejudices and things like that. Terrible way to run a city. A terrible way for people to to have to live in these decisions of such importance. And our city's not run that way, and I'm very proud of it. A lot of it has to do with the people that were here, that you're seeing here tonight, and also Mark Scott and all the fine work that he's done, Fred Cunningham, Denise Overham, and the others at the city. By the way, we should give them a hand, really should. Just briefly, a couple other things that stood out that I think are meaningful in a bigger sense. And one of them is, and you may be surprised, is, can you hear me still? Okay, is Barney's. Barney's. Why Barney's? Not because I shop there, I don't. It is a beautiful store, it looks great, but the key there was the recognition in our city that we were not stuck with a rigidity with regard to zoning and general plan. Recognizing, and many people don't understand this perhaps, because the building that was there was about the same height, but that was an upzone project. That was an overlay zone, and it was a recognition that we could not just be stuck with in a rigid view of 45 feet, 3-story. And it was done in a very effective manner, and in that sense, not only did it provide for height and allow for a department store, but it also created a very positive domino effect on the economics in the city. It brought a more youthful orientation to the city, frankly, that we needed. We really did need, and some people talked about it like a Melrose effect. And it led to Saks Fifth Avenue remodeling substantially in competition, Neiman Marcus, and really a rejuvenation of the economic base in our city for many, many years. Secondly, which was already mentioned by Chuck Ehrenberg, was school funding and the increase of school funding, so crucial that our city recognized the importance, the paramount importance of education and the synergy between the two, and didn't get stuck on the notion that we have a school district on one side and a city on the other, and funding coming over from the city side under the Joint Powers Agreement, and we've increased it to now over $5 million. Thirdly was a program that I felt was very significant. That is the establishment of the endowment 100, to try to reach $100 million and set aside funds, as universities do and as frankly as wealthy people do, in allowing the city to have the financial viability in really deserving in Beverly Hills. And I hope that we do reach that $100 million. I think we're about, what, $9 million now, Mark? Around 8 or 9 million. And finally, a program that I have no responsibility for, but I want to point out that it was Tom Levin's idea, and that is Team Beverly Hills. One of the major problems that we all faced was, how do you bring in new people into the community to get them involved? We all wanted to do it. I certainly did, and it's important to turn over positions of authority and all to the younger people in the community to keep it going. But Tom came up with the concept of Team Beverly Hills and implemented a program that effectively does that, and I want to thank you, Tom, for that. I want to thank the community again for all of the exciting times that it provided to me, and great memories, and I thank you for inviting me here tonight.
Vicki Reynolds, well,
We have to turn 4 switches on.
Vicki Reynolds was elected to the Beverly Hills City Council in 1988 and re-elected in 1992 and 1997. She has been involved in community for over 28 years and has participated in a wide range of public service organizations. She served as vice mayor from 1990-91 and mayor from 1991-92, and was re-elected vice mayor in 1993. Served a second term as mayor from 94 through 95, and is currently serving a third term as a council member of the city of Beverly Hills. Ms. Reynolds' extensive involvement in education also includes an 8-year term as both president and board member of the Beverly Hills Unified School District. The Honorable Vicki Reynolds.
I pushed it. Now is it on? I need to push a little harder. Thank you, Marty, and thank you to the Historical Society for inviting us here tonight. It has been acknowledged, and I also want to add my acknowledgement to all those who have served before me, with me, and ahead of me, for all the work that goes into it. We are really the sum of all the work that's put in and all the years that have gone before us. when I became mayor, I guess I'd had an interview going into the office in which I had alluded to the fact that I was going to have shorter meetings. So at the installation, my darling friend and colleague, Allan Alexander, presented me with a gavel that I couldn't even lift. We were dedicated to having shorter meetings, but that didn't always happen. There were 2 newspapers in the city at the time, and I've had a lot of fun preparing for tonight, and obviously I can't and won't go through all of this, but I started digging through my collection of newspapers, and the first paper that came out was interesting because Mark Schwartz was rather gracious about my taking mayor, which surprised me and delighted me. Peggy Harris, on the other hand, did this characterization of me beleaguered with all the issues that were about to burst onto the scene, and burst they did. Budget shortfall. Barney's was continuing to be a controversy, trying to reactivate water wells. The controversy continued over the use of the industrial area, new business license tax, the issues over Saks and their interest in moving back towards the residential area, traffic management. Traffic became really #1 issue for us in those years. Public parking, how to create more public parking. We wanted to implement a recycling program. Livable streets. Allan, that was your legacy. During my term, we instituted an infamous test program, which we later took out. We put in the speed bumps, took them out. School funding was very much on top of the list, as you've heard. Chuck, thanks for the acknowledgement. We worked very hard with the City Council to interest them in putting a line on their budget for the schools. It was $800,000 in the year that Proposition 13 passed, when the school district lost 40% of its funding overnight. And thanks to the then seated City Council and Chuck's leadership, they did put a line on the budget, and now we're up over, $6 million of funding to the schools, and we're delighted to be able to do that. Greystone, you've heard about that all through the years and all through the terms. That was also something that we inherited. Prophetically, I found that the first public act that I did as mayor was to cut a ribbon on in front of the Cannon Theater for the opening of a show, and creating Love Letters Street for a period of time in front of the Cannon Theater. One of the things that went on during my term as mayor was that we tried to pass a parcel tax for the schools, and despite hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of endorsements, it did fail. That was really unfortunate. During our budget hearings, it became clear that we were going to have, at first we were quoted as having said, I think it was $11 million shortfall. Then the next thing we heard was a $6 million shortfall. Anyway, we did end up with a substantial shortfall that year. The recession hit with full force. I remember the LA Business Journal came to see me, said, "You're the mayor of Beverly Hills, what are you going to do about this? Will the image of Beverly Hills be tarnished?" And I said, "No, we're strong, we're going to pull together, we're going to look to the future, implement some programs now that we hope will come to fruition down the road. And just between you and me, if I had the bucks, I'd buy Wilshire Boulevard." And I know couldn't do it, but I knew I was right. And we did. We created an economic development committee, which mirrored the efforts of Ed Brown and the Chamber of Commerce to establish ties with the business community, to talk about economic development and outreach, so that we could pave the way for people like Barney's and Saks and their development, and other interested businesses to come to Beverly Hills when the recession would in fact turn around. We established a mayor's cabinet, which spoke to the internal workings of the city. It allowed commissioners to meet on a regular basis to exchange information so that everybody would know. It was sort of like allowing the right hand to know what the left hand was doing within the city, so that we could all pull together and accomplish many more things. We established for the first time an Arts and Culture Committee devoted to making Beverly Hills a center for the arts and the center for culture. We created a committee of interested citizens. It was during that term that the new post office was opened on Maple Drive. That is a coincidence, but there I was cutting the ribbon on Maple Drive, which is now the post office headquarters. The budget hearings went on, and we did, in fact, institute a hiring freeze. We held back and, through attrition, cut substantially into our employees, and it was tough times. Everything that could happen, happened. We had a drought. We had to institute a water conservation program. We had to raise water rates. We were sanctioned, as I recall. I think I found this here in the Metro section of the LA Times. MWD penalizes Beverly Hills for failing to meet water-saving goals. We were supposed to meet a 20% conservation level, and we only reached 9%. That's your fault, my fault, and your fault. But and all of our responsibility, we learned about water conservation. We went to Cannes and met with the then mayor of Cannes and had a lot of fun with him promoting Beverly Hills.
He's in jail now.
And he's in jail. You took my line. You stole my line. He's in jail, and we're here to tell about it. Barton Fink was the movie that won the Cannes Film Festival that year, and yes, Michelle Munoz went to jail. There was a women's network that formed in the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce, and as you know, in 1992 was the Year of the Woman, and we did get involved with a lot of that. Here's a picture of Judy and Dick Carroll and their first Father's Day promotion in Carroll and Company. We called for a police audit. That followed actually the Christopher Commission, which the Los Angeles City Council had called for. And we called for an independent audit of our police department. That, in the lawsuit later on that we faced, both individually and on behalf of the city, stood us in good stead as we learned that we do, in fact, have one of the, if not the finest police department in the whole United States. It goes on and on with lots of fun things. Along the way, Michael Cart retired. Remember, Michael was our wonderful librarian and most well known for his imprint series. We had a big issue over the menorah. What does that say? I have 30 seconds left. The menorah went up, much to the chagrin of myself and at the time Allan as well. There were many lawsuits ensued. But all in all, it was great fun, and as I said in one of these interviews along the way, that wherever you go, and it was said here too, it's not just that Beverly Hills is recognized, but it's always the place you want to come home to. So thank you.